Thank you for listening to the Following Films podcast. Today I'm joined by actor Rob Schnider and director Peter Byck. I had Rob on the show to discuss his latest film, Dead Wrong. The film is a story of greed, envy, sex, and murder, centered on a narcissistic husband who's not satisfied with his life and wants more. He devises a psychotic get-rich-quick scheme with his new gambling-addicted attorney that ignites an emotional and deadly chain reaction. We also chat about Peter Bogdanovich, Orson Wells, Christopher Walken, Bruce Dern, and our shared love of physical media. Then after the break, I'm joined by Peter Byck to discuss Roots So Deep You Can See the Devil Down There. It's a 4-part documentary series about inventive farmers and maverick scientists building a path to solving climate change with hooves, heart, and soul. Can an underutilized way to graze cattle that mimics the way bison once roamed the land help get farmers out of debt, restore our depleted soils, rebuild wildlife habitat, and draw down huge amounts of carbon? Cattle have been seen as eco-villains for a long time. What if they can help us save us from catastrophic climate change? Dead Wrong and Roots So Deep are both currently available on VOD. I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks. Hey Rob, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing? Looks like you got those DVDs back there.
Yeah, it's a relic from the past. So DVDs.
It's still good though, man, because you can't find a lot of those movies. And I don't know, if someday they're going to just turn it all off and then we're going to just be stuck with movies.
I'm of that mindset. I'm like that with my music and my movies. And it's just, there's certain ones I just want to own. And that number keeps growing every year, it seems like. So are you a physical guy? Do you enjoy having?
Yeah, I have a lot, but my wife's making me throw it all away.
God, our wives could bitch at each other about this all day, I'm sure. So yeah, that's the one room of the house where I'm allowed to do this.
Yeah, I know. I don't even get a room.
That's probably for the best. But
right.
Thanks, man, for taking the time to do this. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed Dead Wrong. I had a really good time with your performance in it. It's something that I think it's very odd because it's grounded, it's comedic, but it's much more grounded than people are probably used to you seeing. And actually, I feel like there's some real character work that you're doing here that has more subtlety that I actually really enjoy.
Well, thank you. I mean, I never play a bad guy like a bad guy. And I always think you have to have it, I got to think it's real, because it's, and he's a guy that's striving to do something. I mean, he's a guy who's never going to get out. And, but he doesn't know that he's trying to get out. And what happens is, very much so I think in Hollywood, where they don't ask to give 100% of your integrity all at once. They just chip away at it. Once you're halfway done, then you're done. You might as well give the rest. So it's the same thing with a dirty lawyer. That's how I approach this. Like, he doesn't think himself as a dirty lawyer, but he is. And he just thinks he's temporarily a dirty lawyer. But once you go down that road and open that up, you never get out.
It's that once you start certain things, you can't see who you're going to be 5 years down the road when you open those certain doors and you cross certain lines. It's and you can feel that in this character because he would never have imagined the situation that he would find himself in at the beginning of this film, that who he would become.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea of it is, I think you're 100% right. Is everyone has a justification. I mean, I did a prison movie, and most of the extras were prisoners, and everyone had a good reason for what they did. And everybody didn't think they were going to get caught, and everybody, no one admitted it to it. So I always find that kind of like, odd. But at the same time, I think the justification for human behavior is there. And the people who take the least personal responsibility are the ones who are most reckless,
Yeah, it's the lack of self-reflection. I think that ends up creating the most dangerous people. It's the those of us that question ourselves and constantly are keeping ourselves in check, that have a little bit of anxiety about our place in the world, probably aren't doing that much damage.
You're saying the godless people.
Well, I would consider myself amongst the godless heathens, but I also think I have I want to leave the world a better place than I found it.
Okay. You have a moral compass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self-reflection and seeing your place, being able to see that your place in the world and your impact in the world is important to be a healthy, good person. I think
Absolutely. And so, what are you looking for in a film like this? Because you're somebody who's had so many different types of roles throughout your career at this point. Is what makes you say, "Okay, I'm going to go spend some time in
the
this world"?
director, I didn't want to do it, and the director called me personally. And for a director to call me personally, because like I've been offered movies before that I didn't do,
Sure, of
and
course.
and then I thought, well, and then it turned out really good. And I remember like Bad Santa. I just remember that I was making kids movies, and then by page 16, I had to close the script because Santa's having sex in the changing room with one of his elves.
The F me
And
Santa scene. Yeah,
yeah, and I just don't know. But sometimes what has to happen though is you have to trust, um, Chris, you have to trust the material sometimes more than the director, and sometimes the reverse.
Mm.
You have to trust the director more than the material. And that was directed. That was produced by the Coen brothers.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
And
it's a good
then,
one.
but also, but the script really didn't work at the end. But they reshot it. They fired the director, and then they shot the last 2 weeks themselves. And I was really impressed with how they fixed that movie. But those guys know how to make movies, and so you have to trust that. So when this director, when Rick Bieber called me, and I always liked the movie that he made years ago in the 90s. Um, I thought, okay, I understood what he was doing, what he wanted to do with it. And I said, okay, as long as I'm not playing it's got to be a redeemable guy or a guy who's trying to be redeemed. And I said, okay, because just doing a violent, movie doesn't sound that exciting to me. But I realized the potential there because I found myself turning the page going, ooh. And it's good to challenge yourself and to be a little scared sometimes.
And what? So this was a scary role for you to take on, as far as the arc of this character. It's definitely not what you see coming in the beginning as this movie unfolds.
Yeah, I think so too. You got to see him change and be involved with other people. And also they gave me the latitude. I mean, with because I think comedies are just dramas, just turned up. And
Yeah.
this one was drama just turned up. And I remember working with Wilford Brimley many years ago. And Wilford off screen would just yell and do whatever to get a reaction out of you. And he said, off screen, you can do whatever you want to help the other actor. And so I walked into this scene where I was talking to the bank, the bank CEO and the bank people in charge of this case. And I just started yelling expletives and stuff to get a reaction from them.
Yeah.
And the director says, no, no, do that in the scene. So I said, okay. So I thought the scene was, I thought that was a little big, but, you know, Orson Wells had a great statement about being too big. And I met Peter Bogdanovich many years ago, and I was a really big fan of Bogdanovich and just the fact that he was, he's the only guy along with Judd Apatow that I knew when they got some heat in show business, when they became successful, they went out and interviewed people
Mm.
and got them on tape and got them, which is an interesting thing. Bogdanovich was really became close friends with Orson Welles, and Orson Welles is the greatest director that America ever produced, at least in the 20th century. And Orson Welles was talking about this, the idea that something is too big. So there's no such thing. I mean, when you see a couple fighting in a restaurant, it may be embarrassing, it may be humiliating, but nobody ever says, "You guys are being a little big." And I find that to be, I mean, I find that you go for it and let the director take you down, because a lot of times, Chris, the director can't imagine how high you can go. So I think it's good to start here and come down to a place if he says it's too much, and to not. I mean, it's one thing if you work with actors. Like I was very lucky to work early with Tim Curry in Home Alone 2, and Tim,
Yeah.
he would he would just go for it and let the director decide without judging his own performance. And that was very interesting because I'd never seen that at that up till that point in my career.
He's truly one of the greats, Tim Curry. He was
He's one of the great character actors. I would do up until that point. I would see him do it. I would just imagine as an actor that you would do a scene one way, and you find that you think of it the best way, and you keep doing it that way over until you the best of your ability. And that's what I thought. And then I'd see Tim Curry do it a scene seven completely different ways, and all of them were good. And I had to go. I said, Tim, which is there any particular way that you like most? He said, it's not my job to do that, young man. It's up to the director. What I do is I give him a choice. If he like it, I'll do it. And if he wants me to do it again, but I try to give him different ways, and I don't have an attachment to it. And I
Love
went, wow.
that.
So I really appreciated his insight. There's a couple of guys that like you really learn a lot from early, if you're lucky. I got to work with Christopher Walken early. I got to work with Martin Landau early, Tim Curry. I mean, these are guys who, you know, they'll work till they drop because they're just that good, And so you spend time with them, pick their mind because it's like 50 years of acting experience with each of them. That's 150 years right there. So
Oh, easy.
the little gems you get from them are like amazing.
Well, and I know we're running short on time here. It's a real quick one, but the fact that you brought up Bogdanovich, he was one of those guys that just fit into that where he had such a passion for the history of film. I always wondered if he really appreciated his personal place in film because he had such admiration for the people who became before him that I
Yeah.
never felt like from the outside, never felt like he really appreciated how important he himself was as well.
Well, as Orson Wells said, he said, just like the great composers, they do their best work in their 20s and then right before they die. And I think I think it's really tough because we're dealing with a very ageist, um, it's an elitist art form, but it's also very ageist. And so some of these old directors, I mean, Billy Wilder used to hang out at Musso and Frank's on Monday night at the bar, and the only person that would go up and talk to him would be Quentin Tarantino. Quentin was a neighbor of mine in Hollywood, and he'd go and pick his brain and talk to him, talk his ear off. And I was never felt when I was living there and go to Musso and Frank, I never felt comfortable enough to just go up. But like, Quentin Tarantino, he's just So, but Bogdanovich, he made very good movies early, and I will say that like, you know, I had a chance to have him direct something, and I didn't do it. I don't know why. I just
Huh.
think you listen to the studio and what they want to do, and then they have usually a guy, the commercial director that they like, and
Yeah.
they just somebody they can control. If you bring in a Bogdanovich, you bring in a John Landis, you bring in somebody, a Billy Wilder. It's no longer the studio's picture. It's no longer the producer, or the actor, and they just so in essence, they really they don't want a director. They just want a technician who's going to do what they want. And sometimes as an actor, I got tired of having directors who didn't really have the same vision as me. And I was just with John Cleese, and John, we wrote a movie together called The Great Emu War.
Hmm.
And it's about this true story about this Australian army that went to battle against birds and lost. It's just this incredible story in 1932.
True story.
True story called The Great
Amazing.
Emu War.
Love it.
So anyway, it's perfect. And John Cleese, and he loved it. We wrote it. And then we were talking about the director because we want to do it now. Of course, it has to be done in Australia. It's an Australian movie about these giant birds, these emus,
Yeah.
40,000 of them, tens of thousands of them. It's almost like the Zulu kind of type of movie. Um, and he said a very interesting thing. We need a director who can take direction. And I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. Because you need somebody who can work with you and not have his own idea of what you should do.
Somebody's going to be a little bit more neutral that can
Yeah.
go with what the vision is. So
But on this movie, Rick was really good. Rick Beaver was good, and so was the cinematographer.
it looks much better than I think the budget would probably indicate. I think this movie looks like it's punching above its weight class.
Well, thank you. It just, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. You got to get the good actors and a good little gritty story.
Hmm.
And bad guy like Chet Hanks is a real good bad guy.
Agreed.
And then you have and somebody's going to light it and shoot quick. And I really liked the director Rick because he's very confident. Truthfully, the director's job first and foremost, make sure the story works, but really hire the right actors. And so you don't have to really direct them. You can guide them. But I like a director who says, keep your life, Robbie, between here and here. And then you kind of know, well, this guy trusts me to do, that I'm going to do what he wants. That he hired the right guy, and that I remember Harry Dean Stanton was struggling in a scene with me, and it was Bruce Dern and um, what's his name, Kelsey Grammer, Rip
Jesus
Torn.
Christ.
This is a movie down Periscope.
Yeah, no, I knew what it was by the cast, but I forgot. That's a murderer's row, that
Yeah, that
cast in
was
that thing, man.
William Macy was in it too,
Jesus.
and Harry Dean. I just saw him. He was just kind of doing, and I walked to him with his trailer after, and he says, "I just got to remember what Peckinpah told me." He says, "Harry, will you stop thinking about it? It's right because you're doing it." And I was like, "Okay, noted." You know, there's just one of those things. So the history of film and the history is so short. You're one handshake away from Brando with Harry Dean.
Yeah. I mean,
And so it's pretty darn cool. And he would tell me Brando stories because he knew I loved Brando. So it was so cool. I mean, to work with guys like that, and Bruce Dern would had, Bruce Dern was, had a particular attitude about things, which was really fun. So those older actors, it's so cool to just be in a room with them, but to be in a scene with them, it's like, my God, it's fantastic.
you're collecting a paycheck to play with some of the greats. I mean, that just I don't know that you can feel more rarefied than that. And I really appreciate that you have that sense of it, that you can, not unlike Bogdanovich, look back and appreciate, kind of your place in it, but look at, what came before you in those stories and how important that is.
Well, Christopher Walken was one of those guys. He famously, because I got to talk to him, and he famously was like, first thing I do when I get a script, I take out the punctuation. The writer did his job. Now it's mine, and I don't know. I don't want anyone to tell me when to stop. And there's always a twinkle in his eye when he's doing a scene, and he told me the story about Laurence Olivier, and he said, as a young boy, you had to act and dance and sing to have a shot, and so he grew up with that in the very New York accent, thing. And he said, and then as a young actor, I saw Laurence Olivier on stage, and Olivier had to come in the room, and Olivier had to tell someone that his friend was dead, and he said, and Larry came in the room and delivered the line like this: "He's dead." He laughed, and that was so real that the audience became absolutely silent, because that was how unbelievable it was to this man that his friend, how impossible it was that he was dead. And that has a power to it. And I think so guys who can bring something to it that's unexpected, and that you don't, and make sure you're not doing the same thing in every scene, and elevate it. And that's kind of our job. And then you can't control what the whole movie is. You can't worry about it, what they're going to do. But I just wanted to leave something and have, at least I felt I had enough things to build to this character towards the end. And I said, well, if the director likes it, I'm just going to walk away,
That's all you have to do in that moment. That's it. That's perfect, man. And by the way, that's a hell of a walk-in. You got holstered up there. That was really good, man. Appreciate that one.
Every time I see him, it's like I'm not 100% sure. It's like he's a performer, and he's just performing all the time. But he's such an interesting guy. He's one of those guys. There's a few guys like like Bill Murray and him and Adam Sandler and David
Yeah.
Spade. You would just pay to watch them eat lunch.
Yes, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah, for sure. But Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, and congratulations on Dead Wrong. I really enjoyed your performance in the movie. I actually really enjoyed the film overall as well.
Thank you. I hope
think you got
people
something
like
special.
it.
I think they will. I think they will. I think that it does a really good job of building tension throughout. It has moments that are definitely lighter. It has some funnier stuff in here, but this is overall, it's just a fun thriller. Kind of a throwback to something from another generation. We don't see enough, kind of noir-esque films anymore, and I think this has that kind of old school crime thriller that we don't see a lot of these days.
I also like the challenge of shooting something in 18 days.
Jesus, man, I had no idea. That's me.
It was like, well, that's what we had. That's what I saw on my schedule. So, and I kind of like, because you don't have time to second guess yourself or challenge it. And the cinematographer is moving and capturing things. And I do like the cinematography of us, like, let the audience decide where they want to look instead of cut, 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 cut. So I think he tried to do that as many times as we could. So I'm happy with it. But thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. We'll talk again, hopefully on another movie soon.
I hope so, man. It was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you, my friend.
Likewise. All the best. You take care now.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Today's episode of the Following Films podcast is brought to you by Bookmans. Are your shelves groaning under the weight of unread novels and forgotten movies? Does your attic hold a secret collection of vinyl waiting to be rediscovered? At Bookmans Entertainment Exchange, Arizona's favorite haven for pre-loved treasures, they turn your clutter into cash or store credit. But Bookmans is far more than a used bookstore. Bookmans is a cinematic journey. You can relive your favorite films or discover hidden cinematic gems. They have an extensive DVD and Blu-ray collection that offers something for every movie buff, from cult classics to box office hits. Bookmans is a symphony of sound. Dust off your headphones and get lost in the world of music. They offer a vast selection of CD and vinyl records, encompassing everything from classic rock to contemporary pop and everything in between. Bookmans is a gamer's paradise. You can level up your gaming experience with their diverse collection of used video games. From retro consoles to the latest releases, you'll find everything you need to conquer virtual worlds at fantastic pre-owned prices. Bookmans is the home for the curious. If you're looking for that unique piece to add a touch of personality to your space, explore their curated selection of home goods, including vintage finds, decorative items, and even musical instruments. Bookmans is also, goes without saying, a universe of books. From timeless classics to the latest bestsellers, their meticulously curated selection caters to every genre and interest. Whether you're a sci-fi fanatic or a history buff, they have the perfect book to ignite your imagination. Don't let your pre-loved items gather dust. Bookmans offers a hassle-free way to give them a second life. Just go ahead and bring in your used books, movies, music, video games, and even some home goods, and their friendly staff will assess their value. You can choose to receive cash on the spot or store credit to explore their incredible selection. And when you choose Bookmans, you'll know that you're supporting local. They're a proudly locally owned, operated business, supporting the Arizona community. They have an unbeatable selection with a vast array of used media, and you'll always find something new and exciting to discover. And it's eco-friendly. By shopping pre-loved, you're giving items a second life and reducing your environmental footprint. And it's always a great value, because Bookmans offers competitive prices that ensure you get the best deal on your favorite books, movies, and music. Make sure you visit Bookmans today if you're ready to embark on a journey of discovery. Head to your local Bookmans Entertainment Exchange, browse their shelves, unearth a hidden gem, and turn your unused items into cash or store credit. And remember, Bookmans has your cool covered. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks. Hey, Peter, how are you today?
Nice to meet you, Chris. Really well. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
My pleasure.
Man, I've really enjoyed this series. In my mind, I keep calling it a film. Yeah, because it does play out. Okay.
It's a series, but it's a film. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is something that is really rare because there's a couple of boxes it checks at once, where I think this is something it's not something that says this is the absolute answer, which a lot of films that I see that are in this space, they do, where this is the magic bullet. And then that's not the case. It might help. It's part of a solution. It's something that we can do. I think that you have something here that is absolutely that could be a very big help in addressing climate change. But for the people that, for some reason, are reluctant to believe in climate change, there's actually something here that you can completely buy into as well, that I think is just very logical in this.
Well, we come from a no blame, no shame ethos in our work.
It shows.
And so when I'm and I think of soil health as this big tent with lots of doors.
Mm.
I'm coming at it through the climate change door. We got farmers coming at it through profit. Just this is a better business decision. We got folks coming at it through food or water security. If you can't grow your own food, it's going to affect your water tables, all that stuff. We got folks coming in at it through like stewardship, through their religious beliefs, and like we should be good stewards of the planet. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of open doors to this tent, and no doorman, no big fat doorman to keep people out.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty early on. Someone in the film is quoted there saying that they, hey, I might not believe in this stuff, but clean air and clean water is not a bad thing.
Exactly.
So yeah. Okay. There you go. If that's what it takes. I happen to be on the side of believing in climate change, but you don't have to be there with me. And I really love that about this. Could you talk a little bit about AMP though? And maybe so people understand what this is, because I think it's something that is not being discussed nearly enough.
Yeah. It's adaptive multi-paddock grazing. So if you've got a farm that's 100 acres, you can break it down into these little acre pieces with these little single strand polywire fencing that you put a solar panel up and put electric current through, and you move your animals fairly quickly throughout your farm, where then most of the farm is resting most of the time, and they're together in a tight pack. Their urine, their manure, their hooves, they're all making things happen. You let them eat half, and then you move them on, and they stomp the other half, which keeps the soil cool and keeps the moisture from evaporating. And it's based on the way the bison moved across the Great Plains. They were all together. They would eat what they wanted, and either wolves would come up, or they would just know there's better food over there, or the Native Americans are working with them with fire and things like that. And boom, they're moving on, and then that land gets to rest. And what happens is when you eat half a plant, that plant wants to grow back, and it also wants to shoot down roots.
Yep.
So the roots get really strong. The plant grows up, and when a plant grows, it's sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, and it's going to burp out the oxygen for us to eat, the O2 for us to breathe, and then it puts the carbon down into the soil, which feeds all the microbes. And it's the microbial biodiversity and the microbial health is the driver for all of it, for everything we eat, for everything. And so if we can create a situation with a lot of different plants growing on top, you get a whole lot of different types of microbes, biodiversity max, a lot of plants, different kinds of plants, different types of bugs. So no one bug is a pest of one plant because you got an ecosystem of balance. And then you get a lot of birds in there, and that's how nature designed it, right? Whether you think the world is 4.5 billion years old, which I do. Some of my friends think it's 8,000 years old. I'm like, okay, are you treating your soils well? Are you grazing your animals in a way that's making the planet better? Yeah. Okay, let's agree on that. We're not going to agree on everything, but let's agree on that. And not call each other names or anything like that, and just get on with it.
And it's something that actually becomes, it makes what is a destructive to the environment practice actually beneficial to the environment. That when you have large, farms, when you have large cattle, that is something that is a net negative towards the environment. And so this is something that ends up becoming a positive for the environment.
Yeah, it's interesting. The average herd size in the United States is 39. So the animals where they're born and raised for that first year, they're all on grass. Now, whether it's healthy grass or not healthy grass, it's a big, big difference. It's when you then aggregate all those animals into a feedlot and you grow a lot of corn that has a lot of soil erosion in the process and a lot of deforestation in the process to grow the soy. That's when the big industrial problems happen, right? But the grazing itself isn't necessarily, it can be decent or it can be incredibly beneficial. And that's what we're talking about. And so, but once animals go to the feedlot, then it's a whole different ballgame of what that climate change ecological cost is. But the grazing can be an enormously beneficial event where, the animals can make the world better, not less bad, but better.
Yeah. And that's a pretty incredible state to move to. And that it's something that it's better for the animals. It's better for us. It's better. I just don't see the negative here. What do you find is the pushback on this? Is it from the larger systems that are in place that just this is a way that we can maximize profit, because this is something that is actually for the farmer that doesn't take as much time, and it's something that can make them more profitable.
Yeah, I think I personally haven't seen much pushback, but maybe once the film comes out and our science gets disseminated more, maybe I'll see more pushback. I kind of anticipate it.
I just assume.
Yeah, but I think it's logical to think that any company that's making a lot of money will continue to want to make a lot of money, right? That's just logic. So I would expect that the incumbents in the agricultural system that are making a lot of money right now, they're not going to stop trying to make a lot of money. That's to be expected. But when I think about the farmer, and I think about the farmer being in debt, that's an insanely bad situation for so many farmers. Farmers are they're the third largest group in the rates of suicide in the United States. It's first responders, it's oil and gas, fossil fuel workers, and then it's farmers. And debt is a leading cause for that kind of stress to leave you to that decision. So when I look at this, I want farmers out of debt. I don't want them cutting corners when they're growing food for my community, my family, you, me.
Right.
I want them to be able to not have to have an off-farm job, right? And a lot of farmers I know have off-farm jobs because that's how they're going to get insurance. So we've got this giant, nearly $1 trillion farm bill that's coming out every 4 or 5 years, being negotiated now. Why don't we have farmer health insurance? Let's do it.
I mean, why? I'm just the bleeding heart means. Why wouldn't we just have universal health care? That's just me, though. That it seems like a basic thing that we can give to everybody. So
I will say this: I've got a lot of friends that live in England, and they do have universal health care, and that doesn't mean it's going to be all great. I think
no. It's not the cure-all. No.
Yeah, good universal health care would be.
Yes.
I want to put that adjective in there.
Well, it's I mean, and that's a whole separate conversation outside of this. That is another, climate change and healthcare. Those are two things that'll get me going.
Get people going. Yep.
So then, how has the response been so far? Because it's not out there in the world yet, but the people that you've shown it to, because people like me, this is something that when I see this, it's this just makes so much sense. This is like, you can get your head around it so quickly and easily. It's just like, we need to move to this. We need to encourage this type of action immediately.
Yeah, this type of farming. Yeah. That's how it felt to me too. It just made sense. And when you step on a farm that's being cared for, nature first, soil health first, you feel it. The soil is actually squishier, and it smells better. And it sounds better with all the life that's there. It's just a better place. It makes you feel good. Like when I take a walk in the woods, I feel good. And so we've been on the road since last June with what we call our hometown road show. We've been screening it all over the US. It's actually been screened in a lot of other countries. And the response has been stellar. I keep imagining there's people that don't tell me that they don't like it, but so far it's been really strong, the response, really positive, really hopeful. People say they cry when they're watching it, which I love. As a filmmaker, you want to make some people cry. Yeah. And I hear the laughter at the jokes we were hoping for too, because there's laughter is key.
That was actually something that I was surprised with. There is actually humor in this, and the personalities of these farmers coming through is actually just really. There's a couple here that they made me laugh constantly through this thing. So there's some really great moments.
Yeah. And our assistant editor, Charlie Boyce, and our editor, Ben Daughtry, that was a big thing that the three of us were just focused on. We have a column when we're logging, and it's funny, so like if it's funny, it gets a star, because to me, laughing my way through stuff is how I'll learn better. I had a really good teacher in high school. His name was Mr. Shedd at Ballard High School in Louisville. He made us laugh while we were dissecting fetal pigs. And I'm like, how does he do that? How did he do that? So I kept thinking about him when I made Carbonation and when we're making this, because I just like laughing, right? It's just a better way to go. And so we got lucky with the farmers. There's some funny farmers in our film. And that was just luck. That we didn't like cast the farmers. We did a very rigorous scientific approach to finding the the land and the soil types matching and the methods of grazing and getting lucky that their neighbor who's doing it conventionally said yes. So never was there a criteria of funny farmer or cool farmer or someone who can speak on camera farmer. We just got lucky. We got super lucky.
It's how much content, how many hours of footage did you have with this? Because I'm always, when I talk to documentarians, the whittling down process is I can't get my head around it. Like I'm used to, I've worked from an hour and a half down to 15 minutes. I can't imagine going from 180 hours down to, an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think we probably have close to 500 hours of talking and another 500 hours of like beauty shots and bugs and birds and sunsets and stuff. Charlie, who I mentioned before, he logged all of it.
Yeah.
And Ben found the stories. I mean, what Ben Daughtry did for this project, I couldn't have done. I'm a good editor. I couldn't have done what he did. And he worked 18 months on this thing, and then he hit his wall, and he was like, "See ya." But he got us there.
Yeah.
He got us there. And then as an editor, I usually polish my work anyway, because it's like I'll put in that shot and I'll take that frame out, and no one needs to be working with me at that point. I need to be doing it that last step, and he knew that. And he knew that was coming up, and he probably was like, I do not want to be around when Peter is taking one frame out and one frame in. But what he did, what he built for this thing, I'll be forever grateful, because he found it. He found the stories. I just filmed everything. I didn't know what stories were going to be there. And he was really powerful, and even helping us plan some of the final shoots so that we got stories. Like, he was emphatic that we had to have the scientists in the 4th episode talk about the research. And it's like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I just was so busy with everything that, you don't think straight sometimes. And so, yeah, this series doesn't exist without that man's brain. And he did pay the price. We actually had a joke. We had a joke that we would film the very end of the film, like me coming up to we were trying to figure out how do we finish the film? Do I say something? And one was I talk to the camera, saying all the final stuff. And there's this coffin being lowered into the ground in the background. I'm like, oh yeah, that's Ben, and that was Ben's joke. So that'll give you a little bit of sense of where he felt, he put a lot into this.
I could only imagine, and that it's a special type of person that can shepherd it that far. So it's
not that he didn't complain a few times, but he,
of course, no. It's getting it done. I mean, you're allowed to bitch along the way. That's totally that's legal. But
exactly.
That is something that I think is really important. The structurally having that tie together at the end, because it would be very easy, because non-scientist, movie guy, liberal leaning, it's just, I'm on board for this anyway. And then, and it just makes sense. And a lot of times things that make sense, they're not actually true. And so it's very frequent. There's a confirmation bias that we all have, I think.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
It could fall into that possibly, where it's like, oh, this just makes sense. This is natural. And then you have the scientist shows up and they're like, well, no, that's not it. This is what it's actually happening. And then you pull it together. It works.
And we didn't know when we started what the science results were going to be. Yeah. We certainly had a feeling that these farms were robust and something was special happening on them, but we didn't know. We had no clue. And so that's a big gamble. So it was I have more gray hair now than I did when I started. That's for damn sure.
I think we all do at this point. Well, there's been a lot of gray over the last 5 years in this country.
Yes. I wonder. Yes, absolutely. There's been a lot of stress.
Yeah. I saw pictures of myself right in 2018. It's like, oh, look at that.
Who's the biggest is John Oliver. You look at him.
Yes, for sure. Dude,
oh man.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this today, Peter. It was great to meet you, and I really enjoyed the film. So I know it's a hell of an undertaking, each one of these, when you go down I'm hoping, though, there's more. Typical greedy American consumer, you just finished this one, and I'm waiting for the next one. So.
Well, what we want to do now is just get this out. So promoting this is a big job.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And so if folks can come to our website, which is rootssodeep.org, May 28th, the streaming begins. And we're doing it grassroots. So we're not going to have every feature that I like in a streaming service. Like right at the top, we don't think we're going to have secure download yet. So you're going to have to be like online to watch it at the beginning. Sure. But instead of just getting 48 hours to watch it, which all the streamers do when you rent, we'll give you the whole month. So
Oh,
you'll
that's
have
great.
it for a month and you can watch it as many times as you want for that month.
That's awesome, man. And this is something that I think, as we both mentioned here, it's really does cross political lines, where there's something that I think this is just a story that everybody should engage with, because it's really, really important. So
I appreciate that. We're seeing it. We're seeing the responses. It's purple.
it is. Yes, this is there you go. If it's not too late, you could change the title to purple for this movie.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
The purple rating, right? That would be pretty funny. That'd be good, actually.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Peter. It was really nice to meet you, man.
Thank you. Real pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, of course, man.
LOARA.
So this is in Anaheim, and when I go places with my family, I took the kids to Disney earlier this year. I'll always go into a Walgreens or CVS and look for the local high school sports team shirt and just pick up random ones from around the country. So this is from.
That's from Anaheim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think.
And so do you then have your family wear the same shirt so you can track each other at Disneyland?
I'm the only one that does it. I'm the only. I don't actually wear it in the town that I'm at. I go away when I come home and then I wear it. So yeah,
I like that.
Just a goofy little thing. It's I
like that. That's cool.
Bring home my son. Bring my 8-year-old a magnet from whatever city I go to, and I'll bring home myself a random high school athletic T-shirt.
That's cool. So. I tour a lot, and I get on college campuses. So when the boys were little, they all got Penn shirts or Yale or Stanford or whatever. I like yours a lot. The local, and they're in the Walgreens. They're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking for that now. Thank you.
Thanks for taking.
Appreciate everything. Thank you.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Time enough to figure you out. Time enough to write this down. Wish me luck, give me hope. So witchcraft.